You're listening to the Heart and Hustle podcast. We are so excited you're here today, friend. Today, we are sharing our thoughts and opinions in a conversational style episode about the photography industry and the changes that we have seen, because we have been professional photographers for about 10 years, and we have noticed a lot of shifts happening in the industry over that time, especially I feel like in the last 3 to 4 years. So we're going to cover those today, the pros, the cons, the goods, the bads. You won't know until you listen to the episode. So join us today as we chat through the changes we're seeing in the photography industry.
Hey, I'm Lindsay Roman.
And I'm Evie McLeod, and we are family and legacy-focused serial entrepreneurs and the founders of the Heart University, a business education company with a mission to help you thrive in your business and life.
Welcome to our Entrepreneur Cocktail Hour, where business and marketing strategies meet faith, real talk, and raw and life-changing conversations.
At the end of the day, we are all in this together, figuring out how to navigate the ups and downs, the messy and the beautiful, and everything in between. This is a community where you can come as you are, get inspired, and walk away equipped to build a legacy-filled life.
You're listening to the Heart and Hustle podcast.
Hello.
Hi. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
I have so much to say. Where do we even begin?
Well, okay.
Okay, I'll stop. You go.
Well, I was just going to say, for anyone who maybe skipped the intro, by the way, don't skip our intros.
Yeah, by the way, don't do that.
We heard a lot of y'all skip the intros, which I get. But usually we're setting the tone.
We give you stuff in them, y'all.
There's info or prefaces or foundational information. So don't skip the intros. Anyways, that's irrelevant. We are talking about the shifts and the changes that we have seen in the photography industry. And we have both been professional photographers for about 10 years. And then full-time for a little bit less, but very long time in the photography industry. And so today we're going to kind of chat through, we've seen a lot of shifts, of course, over 10 years, but I feel like especially in the last
2 years, maybe even 1 year, probably more like 2.
Yeah.
But let's just get into it.
Let's go.
Let's get into it. I would say the first thing that I've started to notice, and maybe I don't know if I'm coming at this from a biased perspective of what I liked and now what I liked, but I think I'm a trend follower.
So I think we all are subconsciously, even if we don't want to be.
But I want to be because I like the direction that's going in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because it's trendy.
Okay. Share the shift.
I think I personally, style-wise, and this doesn't mean style as just editing style or even aesthetic. It's almost both, kind of. I think where I think it trended when we first got into it more in 2015, especially the rise to 2017, 2018. All of, and I'm talking about wedding photography, but honestly, all of it. But particularly, I think it comes out in wedding photography was the adventurous elopements, very boho, rue de Seine. Yes, not that
dirty boots, messy hair.
Yeah, all of that. It was very much especially for us Midwest gals, we just wanted to go out and shoot in adventurous places and be wow, that was the pinnacle of everything that I've ever wanted.
Yeah,
and I feel in the last 2 years, and we have maybe thoughts of why this is, but I think I've seen a shift from more boho adventurous elopement style. Not that doesn't exist. It definitely still does. But as far as trendiness,
always will.
Yes. As far as trendiness, I've seen a direction into more documentary style, cinematic. And then that even in and of itself leans more towards romantic and vintage or editorial. Very nostalgic type of imagery. And I think you see it a lot in the wedding industry, but I think also specifically you can even, it trickles down into all types of shoots.
Well, I think one of the reasons when we were kind of discussing this, just having a friend chat about it, one of the reasons that we were I wonder if that was a big cause of kind of all the rage was the adventurous travel elopements.
Yeah. Everyone wanting to go
to Yosemite or Horseshoe Bend or,
Horseshoe Bend. I was actively a part of the problem. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Okay, sorry.
There was a whole that was the whirlwind in the wedding industry, the elopement industry, and I feel
my first elopement was at Horseshoe Bend.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I just realized I made that joke and then I didn't explain it. Okay, you get it. Okay.
Actively a part of the problem. I think we were discussing, we were we could almost guarantee that COVID had a big part
because people couldn't travel for a while there. And then so they had to, especially for photographers, it's like, well, how do you, if no one can travel, if you were wanting to get into the destination or actively already were a destination photographer and you couldn't really do that, how do you still make money? People, I think, just the culture itself, not even the photography industry, just like worldwide culture was forced to stay home. And so it's like, okay, how do you make your home cozy? Or how do you live more in your home, I guess?
Well, I think it forced everyone to stay at home. And then what I think you're noticing, well, we're both noticing, but you mentioned us noticing, is the shift from the really adventurous style into the more like cozy nostalgic. Like we're seeing a lot more weddings and things done in
simple, like backyards, fields,
which I think personally probably really was like spurred onward. Not that that wasn't a thing before by any means, because obviously it was. Intimate weddings, micro weddings, all of that was like definitely a thing in backyards. But
I think that the pinnacle of like, I've made it was like destination.
Yeah.
Or at least adventurous locations.
And I still think there's obviously a whole
it still exists. It's not that we're saying boho, it
same
doesn't.
with like Adventurous National Park elopement. Same with, whatever. Like everything can still coexist. But I think we have noticed a dramatic shift from the what used to be the absolute pinnacle of cool was shooting at like Horseshoe Bend. And I feel like now it's shifted to, I don't know, a log cabin in Minnesota.
Listen to all of my Midwest photographers, rise. It is your time.
Rise up.
Rise up. It is now trendy and cool to take your couple or your subject to a friggin' field with a tree and put your shutter speed slower and blurry the heck out of that thing. And all of a sudden, art. And now you are better than a Yosemite wedding. So rise.
I think there's definitely a big shift with that, which is really cool to see, because what I notice in the photo industry, and maybe it's also just us. Maybe there's a personal aspect of like,
definitely we're biased.
Us being in the industry for so long.
Everyone that's actively and still like this adventurous elopement, they're like, what are they talking about?
Well, yeah, but I think everyone, even if you're still in like the adventurous elopement,
I think you could see
you could still see like, oh, there is a shift towards the nostalgic cinematic.
Boho is out. I'm going to offend some people probably. I think boho is out.
Let me be the good cop here and say that I think boho will always, like in the same way that like a really classic traditional wedding with like light and airy was always, like it used to be the rage in like the early 2010s. It like that was it.
And it doesn't mean that it's ugly at all.
No.
And I still love boho. I just think trendiness wise,
it's out. It's out of absolute.
And I almost think that's
favor.
More of a commentary on style, fashion, and like wedding trends than maybe photography, and photography's following that.
Yeah, obviously photography like goes hand in hand. Yeah, so I think with that, I'm noticing, I feel like the wedding industry is following kind of like the cultural shift that's 100%. Happening.
Like people now are decorating with, sorry, I just people, I look on my feed for like interior design and people are now decorating with like twigs and branches. Pampas grass is leaving.
Yeah. Well, I think what I was going to say, excuse you, was...
I just realized we decorated our entire conference with pampas grass. Were we not in?
No, I think we were still in.
Okay. But if we did it... We're not doing it again,
biased.
But if we did it again, we'd have to use twigs.
I actually thought that this year when we did pampas grass again, I was like, this will probably be the last year we could ever use pampas because it's definitely like going out of vogue.
Wow.
Anyways, what I was going to say before
do you see our olive tree and we're not doing pampas, we're doing an olive tree because we're on it.
You have to be watching the YouTube video for our audio listeners. So sorry. We are now on video. If you did not know, this is a great time
to our cozy little studio
to subtly plug.
Okay, I just made a moment. Okay.
You can come and hang out with us.
If you're listening to this on audio, just go look at YouTube and you'll be Candid.
Just make sure you listen to this episode because some of our first episodes were just a white wall behind us. We're slowly improving the studio.
And we're not putting them out in order probably. So who knows what you've seen so far.
We're a mess. Anyways, welcome to just us.
What were we talking about?
We're getting stuff done.
Okay. Industry.
What I was going to say
fashion,
before being so rudely interrupted repeatedly this is chaotic, was I feel like culturally there's a huge shift in our desire where everything wants to now be cozy and nostalgic and very warm and like reflective of our childhoods.
Yeah. Which you see in interior design, you see in
fashion.
like fashion, you also see in photos not being edited as heavily.
Yep.
Which is a trend that we'll obviously get to.
I think that's one of the biggest shifts that I'm seeing in the industry as a whole is everything, in my opinion, which I'm loving, is I feel like the wedding industry is almost, I don't know the words. I don't know how to put this to words. Slowing down and cosifying.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like
so simple.
Yes.
Less extravagant. No,
but that's not true.
It still is extravagant.
I just feel like it's like,
but extravagant in a nostalgic way.
Yes.
Like nostalgic elements even into the extravagance.
Yes. Which is really fun to see. And I feel like as photographers, obviously that's really impacting the style of work that's trending, the editing, film coming back and being absolutely poppin' with like the vibes. Like obviously film has always been there. Film has always been a thing in the wedding industry.
I mean, the other trends that we can just throw in here real fast is like the pantyhose trend. There's been so many reels about just like how that's hysterical. And I'm the problem. It's me. Hi. Just like, and if you don't know what we're talking about, especially if you're a non-photographer listening to this, people have now started to take women's pantyhose, like the foot part of a woman's pantyhose, like a nude one, cutting the toe off and then wrapping the toe around your lens to give it like a foggy, faded look as if it were
like very
film.
Romantic,
Yeah, romantic film
I feel
vibes.
like editing style is leaning much more into, like less you contrast. Said, way less contrasty, much more
I mean, we're also speaking from experience, like both of our edits are a lot less contrasty than they were.
Yep. Very film inspired. So not only I think are so many photographers getting into film, guilty.
And that's also why the joking like slow shutter blurry photo is in, because it's like still trying to emulate film.
Yes. Which I think is really beautiful. And I just love the vibes, the feelings that I have seen shift in the photography industry in the last few years to being like, I don't know, not that I have any issues. I still like love my work and I still loved that season of like adventurous, whatnot. And not that I still don't do adventurous. It's just, there's a feeling that I feel like has shifted in the photography industry from very like.
I think it's the nostalgia that you just said. It's the return to childhood.
Yeah. It's
and I think that's the rise of Gen Z.
Yeah.
Seeing, I think, curation, seeing social media, everyone putting their perfect self forward. And Gen Z, I think, is leading this charge because they're just like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I want film photos that are raw and real.
In the moment, documentary style.
This is wild. I think you've hit, like when you said COVID, I feel like that was the pinnacle of like what has dramatically swung culture
shifts
back to making your home cozy and nostalgic because you were forced to be home.
Well, there was a whole conversation in the interior design industry where, like the sad beige aesthetic or the millennial gray or whatever, that was still like popping before COVID. And then once COVID hit, immediately the interior design industry started seeing a huge shift to people going back to...
Not beige, sad?
Yeah.
Sad, whatever it's called.
From like super minimalist to a little bit more maximalist, people wanting to go from wide open concept homes to more closed concept homes because they realized there wasn't any separation between rooms. There was like, that was in interior design, I noticed a dramatic shift post-COVID, like during COVID. And I feel like that has also affected the entire culture, including the photography industry, which is really interesting.
This is such a fitting conversation to have in our new studio. I'm just having a moment.
Why is it?
Because it's like cozy. We just renovated
vibes.
If you don't know, we just renovated my office where we're doing our podcasting now. And before this, it was just, we hadn't done anything to it. So it was just like a white studio wall. And now it's not done yet, but there's like shiplap.
Progress has been made.
It's like tongue and groove. It's not even tongue and groove. It's, what is that? Beaded board? Bead board.
I feel like Lindsay needs a moment to recover herself. Bead board.
And then there's like a library opposite us. It's not painted and there's no books in it yet, but it's like envision
cozy
Beauty and the Beast level library. Well, I mean, I don't live in a mansion, so imagine like
in a small room,
a scaled down version of that. We want to put like a rod with like a little ladder. This is not the point of this. Okay, I'm just going off. I'm just saying, I'm making a point of like, hey, we're talking about like the nostalgia and it's interesting being in this room, even just the little change of like, oh, it feels cozier. That's also not a point. We can get back on point. I'm so sorry.
I think just the last thing in nostalgia, that obviously affects everything from the editing to the way like weddings are even prioritized, like, you know, from adventurous elopements to now more like backyard style or like rent out a cozy Airbnb or, you know, whatever. I also feel like the last thing in my book that I've really seen shift dramatically in the last couple of years is the shift from, I feel like posing used to be a thing, like heavy posing.
And when you say posing, you mean like, and we've done this before, but like throwing prompt after prompt after prompt at somebody.
No, I mean like posing.
Oh, never mind.
I'm going back like 10 years.
Oh,
like,
you mean like lift your chin up to the left.
Yes.
Look down, look up, turn your right eyeball to the side. Okay.
Like posing.
Like very Vogue fashion forward.
But not even like editorial. No, I don't even know.
You mean JCPenney's catalog, family photo.
Yes,
okay, smile.
That's all that the industry knew for the longest time. Yeah. And then it shifted into like more prompt posing.
To get more of that organic.
Yes, which was like a piggyback ride and like, hey, toss her on your back. Now I want you to bounce her around like crazy. Yeah, like the drunk walk. And again,
we've done these.
We have done these.
And we still use them.
I still use them sometimes for sessions. So I don't want to like hate on it by any means, but I've seen a dramatic shift of awareness, education, and excitement in the photography industry, like a fresh wave of like inspiration of the true storytelling, which is basically setting a scene and letting your couple interact in the way that they naturally would.
Not that you're setting up the scene to tell a story.
And not that you still don't help them along, especially if they're feeling like, I don't know what to do. Like you kind of like advise and direct and like that's your job. You're like, you know, a film director in a lot of ways, but you're trying to set it where like, here's the stage, here's like,
a prop to interact with. Or like you have a basket and you're going on a picnic and you just say, hey, hold this, like walk down this path.
Or like, hey, I want you to walk. Yeah, I want you to walk down here and set up your picnic. And then you just take the photos. And it's very like storytelling in the moment, documentary style.
Which is less of like, kiss her.
Yeah. And not that you can't do those things.
Yeah.
But I feel like before you were trying to create, at least from me, and I think a lot of the photo industry, we were trying to create that storytelling, but we were...
Artificially, maybe?
Yes.
A little bit?
Yes. Because it was like...
Which sometimes you still have to do that, depending on the client.
Absolutely.
Like there's some awkward people out there that don't know how to pose and don't know how to interact naturally when you have it in front of a camera. That's not even like mad. No, that does make sense. That's not even like a diss. It's just some people just genuinely don't know how to, like, and that is our jobs as photographers to teach them how to do that or tell them how to do it. But it's like a difference in how you go about it.
I think it was previously primarily you would just have a prompt list. Even if you varied it per couple and like kind of went with their natural flow in a lot of ways, you were looking for a lot of very specific emotions and like kind of reactions and results. And you had like your staple prompts that you would go off of to really create those. And I feel like there has been a big shift in the industry of people being like, why don't we just create an environment where they can naturally and comfortably interact with each other? I will help them out when needed to kind of prompt them to, you know, do the next thing or, you know, I will set the scene of like, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Don't worry about me. If you guys want to talk. If you guys want to, you know, whatever. Like you still direct in that sense.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they're like these prompt cards that used to be a thing are like even remotely the top of like what people are trying to go for now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that all make sense?
I think it's that leaning into storytelling. Like I've even called, or I've heard people advertise themselves as like, oh, I'm offering storytelling sessions.
Yeah.
But they'll also offer a couple session. It's almost like people differentiate it.
Yeah.
Or some people just do it. The last thing I would say that I've noticed, and there's probably more that we're not thinking about, but just for this podcast episode, when we were kind of thinking about it, I think there is a shift. And this isn't all across the board, but I think brides or just like couples in general that are planning their wedding, and even this could probably still apply to non-wedding photography, but specifically I think I see it mostly in wedding photography, is clients caring more about aesthetics than they did before. And I think that comes out mostly in weddings because there's like tablescapes and decor that aren't necessarily there in, well, I don't know, even in sessions, like people might be like, oh, I want to bring a picnic or I want to bring like flowers, like a bouquet. Like
I feel like
they care about vibes.
I feel like people care about vibes, but in the same sense, I think it stems from wanting the nostalgia. People wanting to feel these like rich emotions from their photos. But what I think that the root of all of that is, I think because of social media and especially like TikTok and this cultural shift of wanting like to feel things like nostalgic and warm and cozy, I've seen a huge shift of culture in general appreciating good photography more than they used to.
Yeah.
It was before, it was like, I know I want this documented and I would like to like the photos. And not that still doesn't happen, but like
more people are willing to pay more for good photography.
I've seen that shift.
Yeah.
And that could not be like as across the board, especially like, I don't know, if you're in your first year or two of business, you might be like listening to this being like, I'm not seeing that at all right now.
How fortunate for you, Evie.
So, but I feel like in general, in our culture, I'm just seeing even more of a return to an appreciation for the memories documented via photography.
I mean, I photographed a wedding. The coverage was 3 hours and all she cared about, like she barely was, like I was the main expense, basically, because there was nothing. It was like literally
backyard elopement.
Elopement, literally no guests whatsoever, me and the officiant. And she, in her inquiry, was like, I want filmy. She was like, I want Vogue meets like backyard film. Like I just took it on like my disposable camera. And I was like, yes, vibes. But it's that. It's like you're still appreciating the art and the memory capturing of the feeling.
Yes.
But you're willing to pay for it, but you're less now willing to spend all the things on everything else and not that. Not that that doesn't happen. Obviously, it still does. But
I think the bottom line, I just see a shift in people appreciating photography.
Yeah.
More than ever, which is really cool. As photographers, I'm like,
love that.
We love that. Here for it. Anyways, those are our thoughts. I feel like just conversational style thrown at you.
We want to know, though, if you guys agree with that. Or if there's anything else that you disagree with.
I'm sure we're missing things.
We probably are missing things, but weigh in, especially if you're a photographer, like weigh in on this conversation and let us know if you have seen this as well.
Yeah.
Do you think boho's out? I really want to know. I really want to know.
If you're watching on YouTube.
What's your hot take on Pampas Grass?
Also, she pronounces it Pampas. It is absolutely pronounced Pampas.
It's absolutely Pampas.
Anyways, if you're on YouTube, feel free to use the comment section and share your thoughts there. Y'all can interact with each other. Come join our Heart and Hustle Facebook group to also join into a conversation if you guys want to chat about the trends in the photography industry. And as always, feel free to come and slide into our DMs and we would love to chat. We just love building community and hanging out with you and growing and learning with you as we build our businesses.
I just realized back in the day when we first started this wee little podcast, we dropped our handles. And you probably know them, but I'm going to return to that because why not? I'm at Mrs. Lindsay Roman and she's at Evie Rupp, even though that's her maiden name. She's married. She's been married for a while now. So talk to me about why that's Evie Rupp.
That's a whole other conversation about Instagram being an absolute pain to deal with. Anyways, that's all for today. We love you so much and we will see you on the next episode.